Shalom, shalom. This is your Davin coming at y'all with the word. And today's topic is going to be about the importance of Yahawashi and covenants. Because in the beginning, we were in a covenant. You know, we've always been in a covenant. We're in a covenant now. We were in a covenant before. The Most High gave the law to the angels, and the disposition of angels was given to Moses. And to Moses, that was given to us. So let's get that. Let's get Acts chapter 7, verse 53. And it reads, who have received the law by the disposition of angels and have not kept it. So this law was given to us by the dispositions of angels, and it was given by a covenant. Now let's see how this covenant was consummated. You're gonna find out it was consummated by blood, because the Most High deals with blood. This is Exodus chapter 24 and verse 8. And it says, and Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which Yahweh made with you concerning all these words. Because everything that is an oath, the Most High deals with, he created different things. So he created the blood to be the life, to establish a covenant. Okay? You know, when you look at, even when you talk about the remission of sins, when Cain and Abel made a sacrifice, in order to make a sacrifice and atonement for sin, blood has to be shed. Okay? And if you look, Abel, when he committed his sacrifice, he put the animal on there and, he shed his blood. But Cain, he didn't want to give up his cattle. He's like, hey, let me just give the fruit. And what the Most High say, if you do well, won't you be accepted? So he didn't do well. He didn't want to give up. He didn't want to shed the blood. But that is the heavenly order, because everything is consummated by blood. Because the women of old were supposed to be virgins. So when a man goes into a woman, he breaks what? The hymen. So when he breaks the hymen, what happens? Blood comes out. And that's a blood covenant between the man and the woman. On the left-hand side, the same thing. Because the devil is always he's always trying to do a rough draft of the real thing. And so he makes his own blood covenant on the left-hand side. But in its proper way, the Most High, he deals with blood on the right-hand side. So let's get that, because without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sins. This is Hebrews, just to touch on the blood. Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 22. And almost all things are by the law purged with blood, and without shedding of blood is no remission. So that's very important. And a lot of times, we talk about the Most High, Yahawashi, him dying on the cross and rising again. We have to understand what that's really dealing with. Because the whole beginning of this covenant was consummated by blood. And we can get that even going back to Abraham, the purpose of circumcision, because it's all dealing with the blood, the covenant, the consummating of the covenant. All right? When you write a covenant, a marriage covenant with your wife, you write down the instruments. I'll do this, I'll do that. That's the law, statutes, and commandments. But it was consummated by the circumcision. Okay, this was established first in heaven, and then it's established on earth with, the man and the woman. Let's get Genesis chapter 17 and verse 10. And it says, "This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you, and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised." What happens with the circumcision? Blood. Okay. Now, what's the significance of blood? Why does the Most High deal with blood? Well, you're gonna find out that the life of a man is literally his blood. Let's get that. This is it's deep and it's simple at the same time. In simplicity and purity. This is verse 13 of Leviticus 17. And whatsoever man there be of the children of Yasharal, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, which hunteth and catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof, and cover it with dust. For it is the life of all flesh. I'm going to read that again. For it is the life of all flesh. The blood of it is for the life thereof. Therefore I said unto the children of Yasharal, ye shall not eat the blood of no manner of flesh, for the life of all flesh is the blood. Whosoever eateth it shall be cut off. There you have it. So, no eating blood. The life of all flesh is the blood. And on a subconscious level, we know that. That's why a lot of times we watch surgery, we watch certain movies, and, for some reason, it doesn't set right seeing blood. Seeing somebody bleeding, it's a horrific sight. Because you're going to see that's imprinted for you to know that when someone's bleeding or anything like that, that's somebody's life coming out of them. It's a horrific sight. That's the reason for that. It's spiritual. So the life of a man is the blood. And let's see. So and we broke that covenant. That blood covenant. We broke it. Okay, we had a blood covenant with the Most High God. And we broke it. So he sent his own son to die for us. We know the story, but we got to understand the background, the significance of it. Why is it that he chose to die and raise again? Couldn't he chose another way to redeem us? Why did he choose that specific way? You got to deal with that. And when we go into this, you'll understand that the Most High works and why he chose, on the Passover, which is the Passover lamb. Because if you go into it, Yahawashi was delivered on the Passover. And when you deliver the lamb, it's an atonement on the Passover. And Yahawashi is known as the Lamb. All right, so none of this is by mistake, not by happenstance. The Most High has a perfect order in the way that he does things. This is Romans chapter 4 and verse 25. It says, who was delivered for our offenses and was raised again for our justification. All right, so he was killed for our offenses. A lamb, because the lamb is sacrificed, and also because we were worthy of death. We sinned a sin that is worthy of death. What's the sin that's worthy of death? Let's find out. This is Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 8. And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Yasharala committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce. Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. So we went up and down playing the harlot. We committed spiritual adultery against the Most High. And what's the consequence for adultery? What comes after adultery? According to the law, death. If you commit adultery, you get stoned, you get killed. But we committed spiritual adultery against our God by going into other gods. All right, so it's not talking about literal adultery, Israel. It's not, for all the Jakes who don't have, you got to have ears to hear. You got to have spiritual understanding. It's not talking about literal adultery. It's spiritual adultery. It's not the kind of adultery we would think of. Let's go ahead and prove that. Let's get into that. This is Ezekiel 23 and 30. This is Ezekiel chapter 23 and verse 30. I will do these things unto thee, because thou hast gone a whoring after the heathen, and because thou art polluted with their idols. So we went a whoring and we polluted ourselves by worshiping other gods. And there's a lot of different ways you can worship other gods. A lot of the different sins that we commit. Idolatry still in 2019. So that's how we went a whoring, by worshiping other gods. And the prophet spoke of a time when, it's too much. It's too much. Even for the sin offering, it's way too much. That the covenant was broken. The Most High said that he gave us the bill of divorce in Jeremiah chapter 3 and verse 8. So since he gave us the bill of divorce, that means we're no longer under contract. And ultimately, the law is no more, because it was consummated by blood, and the contract, the marriage covenant, was the law. So you're going to find out that the law was actually no more contractually, because we didn't keep justice or righteousness. Now, that's a big thing for me to say, that the law was no more. Let's prove that. This is Lamentations chapter 2 and verse 9. Her gates are sunk into the ground. He has destroyed and broken her bars. Her king and her princes are among the Gentiles. Okay, we're among the Gentiles. We're the people of Yasharal. We're supposed to be a nation of kings and priests, but we're among the Gentiles. The law is no more. The covenant is no more, because we broke the covenant. The marriage null and void. Her prophets also find no vision from Yahweh. Okay, let's get Hosea chapter 2 and verse 11. Say, I will also cause all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, and her Sabbaths, and all her solemn feasts. So we said that he will cause them all to cease. All these different feast days, it's no more. All right, so a lot of you guys, in order to really understand, when you deal with the Most High God, him sending his son to redeem his people, what was he redeeming? He was redeeming the covenant, because the covenant and the law was no more. The feast days were no more. Now, what was the covenant? Now, we were not supposed to kill, we're not supposed to steal, but in the way that he presented to Yasharal, it was an intimate covenant that he had with his people. Okay, between the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. He had a covenant with these people. That's why when you look at the Mayans and you look at the people of Americas, they had the Ten Commandments. You look at the Igbos in Africa. They have, other different cultures that go in along with the Torah. Okay, that was our covenant. Hey, we broke that. We broke that covenant. So Yahawashi came to redeem the covenant, and he did it in a way that was in agreement with the law. Bloods and bulls couldn't save us, but that was the way of redeeming when you sinned. So he sent the perfect sacrifice because our sins were so high to redeem Israel. So when we read scriptures like this, when we read scriptures like Ephesians chapter 8, this is major, man. I mean, when you read, and your Christian pastor is not going to say this, though. He's just going to say, the Most High, he just happened to die on the cross, and since he died, there's no more, we don't have to keep the law anymore. We can just, it's just free for all. No. He died because the law was no more. We had no more covenant with the Most High. So what did he redeem? Redeem means to bring back. This is Ephesians 1:7. It says, in whom we have redemption. So the law was no more. Now he brings the law back through his blood and forgiveness of sins, according to the riches of his grace. Because a lot of people think, hey, Paul was talking about, we don't have to keep the law anymore. No, he was saying, he was establishing the law because Yahawashi came to bring back the covenant. But in this new covenant was by his blood. So that in our attempt and our climb to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, if we stumble, if we almost fall, we can pick ourselves up. But the Most High is going to be, Most High's Son is going to be that safety net for us if we do go off. So that's why it's no longer of our righteousness. But we still got to keep the covenant. But if we fall off, the Most High is not going to give us the bill of divorce because his perfect sacrifice is Son. But Paul was never trying to tell us that we don't keep the law anymore. It was always to establish the law. Let's prove that. This is Romans. All right, let's get it. Romans chapter 3, verse 31. And this is Paul talking. He says, do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law. This is Paul. Hey, Paul said this. Paul said, we're here to establish the law. So if he established the law, he established the covenant, and now it's no longer it's not consummated by the circumcision. It's no longer consummated by the blood of bulls. It's consummated by the blood of Yahawashi, Mashiach. But all the letter in the covenant, all the other, the statutes, things in the covenant, they've all been redeemed. So now we're supposed to keep them. All right. And this is what our hope is, that we can have that redemption so that, the covenant is put in our hearts, minds, and our spirits. And this is Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31. And it says, behold, the days come, saith Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Yasharal and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break. All right, we went, hey, this is it. We broke the covenant, although I was an husband unto them, okay? But we went a-whoring, saith unto them, saith Yahweh, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel, Yasharal. After those days, saith Yahweh, I will put my law, my covenant, in their inward parts, and write it in their hearts. Okay, now let's think about that, because in the Christian we'll say, oh, since it's written in our hearts, that means I don't have to keep that. That doesn't make any sense. Whatever is in your heart and in your inward parts, you're gonna do. So if it's in our inward parts, we're gonna do it. All right, let's keep it practical. And will be their God, and they shall be my people. All right. And then we're gonna go back to being the bride of Yahawashi. Let's get Revelation chapter 21. And then verse 9. And there came unto me one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials full of the seven last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will shew thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. So if we're back being the Most High's wife, the covenant that we have with our Creator being established, and that's our hope. We be reunited. We're progressing in the new covenant, but ultimately, the glass that we see darkly, which we're in now, is going to be in full effect, and we're going to see clearly. Once this devil is destroyed, the one who covers the face of the judges, once the darkness is done away, we're going to see things clearly for what they are. The Most High is going to redeem his people. We're going to be in covenant with the Most High, and everlasting joy and everlasting peace forever. Okay, and so shall we ever be with the Most High. We're going to be in covenant with the Lamb. Okay, the same language is the reason why it's talking about the Lamb. It's still in Israel's culture. The reason why they call him the Lamb, because it's talking about the Passover, and they refer to Yahawashi as the Lamb. That's why Yahawashi is called the Lamb, because in the Passover they sacrificed the lamb. Yahawashi was the ultimate sacrifice on the Passover, and that's why they call him the Lamb. And that's why we're called the Lamb's wife, because he redeemed us by his blood, so we can keep the law, statutes, and commandments, which is our covenant with the Creator. Again, this is Yadavin coming at y'all with the word. All praise to the Most High. Nations 12. All praises. Shalom.